All right, guys. It's been a day to reflect and to decompress what just happened yesterday between Manchester City and Arsenal, where unfortunately we did go down 2-1. And in terms of the ramifications of what it does to our Premier League hopes, it does hand the ball back into Manchester City's court. I guess we're both on even standing now, especially if Man City do win the game in hand, then we're all tied in points, and it all comes down to the race in the goal difference. Obviously, you're looking at the rest of the fixtures. A lot of people would expect our games to be more favourable in terms of Premier League table position. But I think there's been enough proof in this season that that doesn't really matter. I mean, if it did matter, we wouldn't have drawn to Wolves, we wouldn't have lost to Bournemouth. And those things happened, and now we are in a pretty bad predicament. So we do need some favours coming from the rest of the league. But enough of that. Let's get into the player ratings. Let's start from the keeper as usual, David Raya. And I may be a bit harsh, but I'm going to put him as a poor. And the reason being is I've noticed that Raya of late has in him a really bad mistake, especially with the ball at his feet. He just seems to have a knack of just putting ourselves in a really bad position, whether it be trying to dribble out of trouble or whether it be passing it. This time, he mishandles a very basic touch from Gabriel, I believe. Let me just mute that. Yeah, mishandles a really, really poor touch from a very simple back pass from Gabriel, from a goal kick, actually. And the ball just ricochets, nearly falls into the path of Haaland, and thankfully he has enough of a quick of a reflex to clear it out for a throw in. But that's the sort of thing, because it happened so early, it just set the tone of what the game was going to be like. And there's one thing that Man City is very good at. It's when they sense a sign of weakness, they know how to pounce and capitalize. And when you make a mistake like that, we were always going to be starting on the back foot. It just invited pressure. And what happened in the next 5-ish minutes, they nearly scored a goal in 2 to 3 separate occasions. There was a shot, I think it was from Bernardo Silva, that was thankfully blocked by I believe it was Saliba or Gabriel. Just smacks into the post, and it was spinning. It could have easily spun into a goal, but thankfully for us, it bounces into Raya's arms, and then another couple of nervy moments soon after that. So that's the sort of thing that really doesn't, give me a lot of confidence from Raya. I mean, we were all like hoping for, after watching Kepa make some really diabolical mistakes in the Carabao Cup final and also in the FA Cup quarter final. We were always expecting, it's all right. David Raya wouldn't put us in danger. Oh, well, so far, even in the Bournemouth game, he had a couple of really bad passes too. So I'm really concerned with his form at the moment. And in terms of his goalkeeping, well, he didn't really have any. The saves he made weren't very uncomfortable, but the 2 goals that were let in, well, it's a tough ask, sure, to save a goal that probably is hard to save. But you look at Donnarumma being able to pull out a couple of really good saves on his end, whereas Raya wasn't able to pull out one on his own, unfortunately. So, yeah, look, not filled with a lot of confidence from our keeper, so I'm going to keep him as a poor there. Mosquera coming in as a right back over the injured Urian Timber, and obviously I think Mikel prefers him to be as our starting right back for a defensive purpose in favor of Ben White. And you know what? I was actually pretty impressed by Mosquera. Um, he did as best as he could. Obviously, Doku is a very, very hard cover, but for the most part, I think he did pretty well. And going forward, he actually put in a decent work rate. There was a brilliant cross that he sent in, and if it wasn't for a last second touch from, I think it was Kusanov, Havertz was right in the path and could have easily scored a goal there. It was a really brilliant cross, something that you expect Ben White to do. So I was really impressed with how Mosquera filled in the gap and performed. And Doku, yes, he was dangerous. He did cause the second goal, but I think that was more of a failure of our press, especially for Martinelli, that led to the chance, more so than the individual efforts of Mosquera. So I think he had a pretty solid day out, did he? And for that, I'm going to put him as a good. So pleasantly surprised, when he started at the right back position, the first few games I was not convinced at all. He looked slow. He was getting beaten by the winger constantly, but he's starting to grow into that position as Yuri Timber has some extended time off, and I think I've got some confidence to believe in him that he can cover that role before Timber comes back. William Saliba next. And I'm going to put him as a good, and it feels like I've put him as a good or a very good for a lot of the games, if not every game of this calendar year since I started this channel, and for good reason. He's been rock solid for us. I don't think he put a foot wrong for us. You could even debate whether I should put him as very good, because whenever he had to battle it out with Erling Haaland, I think he was superior. Definitely superior in the air against Haaland. He was strong, he was physical, and he never let Haaland be able to hold the ball and start the attack from a long ball to Haaland. So really impressed with Saliba. Obviously disappointing that he couldn't stop the two goals. He nearly got the block onto the first goal by Cherki, but unfortunately Cherki was able to slide the ball right under his outstretched leg. And then the second goal, well, again, more of a team effort there. And I think and Gabriel was on Erling Haaland there, and unfortunately Haaland got the better of him on that moment there. So I'm still pretty happy with how Saliba performed. I think on the ball he looked pretty tidy as well. So yeah, we're very very lucky to have Saliba in our club, and hopefully he doesn't move on, because I know big clubs like Real Madrid are going to be snatching at the bit to try and get him. All right, talking of Gabriel, he will be next, and I'm going to put him as an average. I've been debating whether I should put him as a poor, because he is involved in the two goals that City scores. He did get done by Cherki for the first goal, and to be fair, I'm gonna give more credit to Cherki, because he was destroying our backline at times. Was that guy with his craftiness, his technical ability was brilliant. And Gabriel gets faked. He goes for a block, but Cherki just dribbles past him and scores. And in the second goal, he gets outmuscled by Haaland, and Haaland is able to sweep up the cross for a goal as well. And was very disappointed with Gabriel for getting involved with the altercation with Haaland late in the second half. Could have easily gotten a red card if Haaland does go down and makes a meal out of it. I think it gives a lot of incentive for the ref to give a red card, and I think we wouldn't have complained if it was a red card, because I think if someone gets headbutted, if one of our players gets headbutted, even if it's a slight nudge, it's still not a good look. And I was very disappointed by him. Someone that has taken out captain's armband at some points of the season, not a good example for our team. So, yeah, you could easily make a point that he could be poor. And I've been tossing it between. I think he did an okay job for the most part, defensively on Haaland. Just a couple of moments that he failed to capitalize and, help us avoid conceding those goals. He did have a good header into the back post. Unfortunately, gets deflected and hits the post. So could have scored there, but I think not much can be done if it gets deflected. Otherwise, yeah, I'm just gonna leave an average. You can easily put him as a poor. I wouldn't complain either. Hincapié, I continue to be impressed by Hincapié, and I'm gonna put him as a good, as in the six. Obviously starting as a left back in front of Calafiori, who still is a mystery for us. Calafiori just never seems to stay fit, but thankfully we do have Hincapié, and I think he did a very good job in this game. Obviously, having to cover Semenyo, which is not an easy task either. There were a couple of times where Semenyo did get him beat, cutting inside, and there was a long ball over the top that Semenyo was able to run onto, and if it wasn't for a bad touch from Semenyo, he could have been easily on goal. But outside of those couple of moments, Hincapié did a very good, admirable job on Semenyo, and he had some creative looks going forward as well. So happy with how he's played, and of late. Hopefully, I mean, I still prefer to have Calafiori on the pitch, as he does seem to unlock our left side so much more than any of our other left backs. But Hincapié defensively can't ask for too much more. Zubimendi, after a very good outing at Sporting, unfortunately he did not able to keep up his form, and I'm gonna have to put him as a poor. He was just invisible for a large portion of this game, and it's a mystery. It is a mystery of where this guy has gone. I just didn't notice him for a good 30-40 minutes after a pretty promising start to the game, where we had, some good looks at goal, and controlled some possession, and had a good press going against City. After that, he just turned into a ghost, and I don't even remember him being on the pitch, to be honest. So yeah, for that, poor. We need him. We need him to step it up, and maybe it's just him not being adjusted to the Premier League, the fixtures that we've got. Yeah, I don't know. We just need more from him. We just need more from him. His resistance to the press, his passing, his ability to make tackles, win the aerial duels, stuff that he was doing earlier in the season, just not there anymore. Declan Rice, I'm gonna put him as an average. I think I was very, I was, I was impressed by Rice in the first half in particular. I think the way that he was able to win multiple aerial balls, win multiple second ball duels, to help us keep Manchester City at times pinned in because of our press, was really, really strong, and I was really happy with how he did that. Unfortunately, he did fade away a bit as the game went on, as City piled on the pressure and we didn't have any of the possession. I think that's an area of the game that Rice can improve on, is the ability to retain the ball in tight spaces and pass us out or dribble us out of trouble. I think that's something that he needs to work on. But obviously, look, he's still early in his career. He can definitely add that to his game. But yeah, he was not covering he didn't seem like he was covering as much ground as he used to. Whereas you look at Bernardo Silva, he seemed to be everywhere on the pitch. So I'm still hoping Rice can dig in and be that machine that we know he can be. But I think the way City played in the second half and onwards really did nullify Rice's effectiveness overall. But still a good performance in the first half, but obviously teetered during the rest. Martin Odegaard, I think, can't can't remember what I put as in the short. I think I put him as a good on average, but I think he was average here. In terms of he is our captain for a reason because he leads the press, and whenever he's on the pitch, our press is just seems to be 10 times better when he's on the pitch, and it showed. He was leading the troops out on the field, and directing where people should be, and that was our way in to try and get a result out of this game. And City definitely struggled to play out of the back, and then in the end, City resulted into more long balls at times, which played into our hands. As I said before, Rice would win those aerial duels, and we'd keep possession in their half, and it's mainly due to Odegaard. And then Odegaard, I think he's starting to recognize that he needs to be more brave, and he did show that he wanted to play some football. He made some creative passes. He really moved the game on. Unfortunately, no end product from him. Wasn't able to find those incisive passes into the back line. Did have a good involvement, where he made a. I think it was him where we did break. We had a brilliant break in the second half, I believe, where he was played in by Eze, and then he passed it into Havertz, and Havertz unfortunately was unable to finish that chance. So still involved in our attacks, but still want more from Odegaard. I think he can unlock a little bit more of that technical ability that we know he can have, but yeah, in the second half, a big reason of why we were pinned into our own half for a lot of the game was his inability to retain possession, and he was tackled off the ball multiple times. He couldn't find the correct passes multiple times towards Havertz and Martinelli. So still looking for that extra bit of quality from our captain. Eberechi Eze starting on the left wing, and I think we haven't seen him on the left wing enough, mainly because of Odegaard's injuries, but I think he was good. Eze has had has a resurgence in form of late, and it's really showing. He seems to have his swagger on the ball back. Every time he touches the ball, he has that confidence oozing through him. He wants to beat his man. He's recovered his glide on the ball. Whenever he has hit the ball, he seems to glide all over the pitch. It's excellent to watch. It's brilliant to watch, and I love it. And he was definitely involved in some of our most effective attacks. The one I mentioned just now, with him breaking with Odegaard and Havertz, was most definitely probably our best attack. Unfortunately, we could not finish it, but otherwise, man, he was really, really dangerous. He had a brilliant strike on the ball at the top of the box, and unfortunately, it just didn't curl enough and smacks against the post. And much like Bernardo Silva's chance, it had a lot of curve, a lot of spin. That ball could have easily turned into the goal, but unfortunately does dribble out to the sideline instead. But yeah, unfortunately, as I had to be subbed off, I think, he's still nurturing a recent injury. Got to watch his minutes. There's still a lot to play for in this run, and there's still a Champions League, don't you forget. So we will need Eze, and hopefully he can still maintain this form going forward, and I have utmost belief that he can. He lives for these big moments, no doubt about it. Noni Madueke, poor. Not much to be said. He just doesn't have that quality in him. The end product from Madueke is lacking, massively lacking. He does have a really good shot in him, no doubt about it. He does have a good cross. He does have a good penetrating dribble in him, no doubt about it. But the ability to capitalize, to cap that good moment with a goal or an assist, or at least a really effective shot on target, is something that he lacks consistently. We've seen some brilliant goals from him this season, but we just need that consistency from him, and he just doesn't provide it. And in the first half, there was a couple of chances from him where he could, he tried to dribble through his right back, I think O'Reilly. And to be fair, O'Reilly had a brilliant game. I think he was, if I was a City fan, I'd put O'Reilly as my man of the match. I think he did a brilliant job against our right wingers in that game. But yeah, Madueke just kept getting dispossessed, couldn't make simple passes regularly. Yeah, poor. And definitely missing the effectiveness, the quality of Saka. Finally, for our starting 11, Kai Havertz, and I'm going to give him as an average. Obviously, scored our only goal by pressuring Donnarumma into a mistake, and putting his foot out to deflect the goal clearance into the back of the net, which was a brilliant way to respond to City's first goal. Just 1.5 minutes after that, straight after the kickoff, and answers the goal. Really good striker's instinct, and I think he had a really good he had a good performance in the first half. Obviously teetered away during the second half as a team we were getting pinned in and outplayed constantly, but in the first half his hold up play was really good. I'm just really disappointed in his finishing, and I think that's something that we all know. Havertz is not the best finisher. He can score goals, but when he's put in front of goal, more times than not, he's not able to finish it. There was a chance that I already mentioned, that breakaway where he needed to score that. Fair play to Donnarumma. He did have a good save, but I think if you're a world-class striker, you finish that. And then the dying seconds of the match, he has himself a brilliant cross delivered in by, was it Ben White, or was it, not too sure. Brilliant cross in, and he finds himself in the middle of the box, free header, and he heads it over the bar. Very disappointing, and that could have, who knows, the season could have ended because of that missed chance. Yeah, but for his first half performance, where he was good, not a great second half performance, unfortunately. So that sort of evens out with an average for me. The coach, the manager, Mikel Arteta, really enjoyed his starting 11, putting Eze on with Odegaard. I think that's a combo that we need to explore more for this run-in, and I think the way he set us up, the press was brilliant. We were playing, I think he definitely, his past comments saying that we have that fire in our belly, I definitely saw it. I definitely saw that, and I think Mikel Arteta set us up to do that. And, in terms of that, I was happy with how Arteta set us up. So, yeah, not too many complaints. I'll put him as a good grade, if there was only a couple of pain points from him. I wish he put Gyökeres in a little bit earlier. I'll talk that a little bit more, because City was playing a pretty high line actually, and we were finding ourselves with a lot of breaking opportunities, balls in behind, and at times Havertz was getting bullied off the ball by Bernardo Silva even as well, and Kusanov, where he got potentially fouled. I'm not too sure. I think it was a bit too soft for a foul. But, who knows? Another referee, another day, that gives a red card to Kusanov. But I think Havertz was way too weak in that situation. And I think Gyökeres put him in that situation. I think he's able to bully his way through to goal. And I think Arteta didn't recognise that early enough and put Gyökeres into the sole striker role. Onto the subs, and I should probably treat Martinelli as a starter, because he was subbed on at halftime and effectively played more minutes than Madueke, because he had more extra time in the second half. But I'm gonna put Martinelli as I'll rate him as an average, mainly because he was really strong under the press. Unfortunately, the big blemish, obviously, he missed positions to cover O'Reilly, who receives the ball off a goal kick. and then it leads to a goal for City. That was the only real blemish. I think Martinelli, for the most part, made some great tackles, which allowed us to start some big counters. Unfortunately, wasn't too effective outside of that, but got to give credit where credit is due. I think he was very active and very defensively tuned in, except for that one moment. Trossard comes on for Eze in the second half, and had a couple of good moments, but still hoping that he has that ball retention power in him. So I think he was also an average. I think most of the subs were probably in like an average grading. Ben White obviously didn't get too involved in the game. Did his defensive duties pretty well actually onto Doku, and had a couple of overlaps, but otherwise nothing to note. And Gyökeres, as I said before, I wish he was put on the pitch a lot earlier, and he just didn't get enough time to grow into the game and be effective. I don't think he really made any touches on the ball. Now that I think about it. But I think this, the second half, I think the game was opening up, and he should have been on the pitch earlier, I reckon, because give him those chances that Havertz had, and I reckon he finishes them off. So, yeah. All right, these are my player ratings for the game. Hope you guys enjoyed that. If you comment and if you disagree or agree, if I'm too harsh or if I'm too lenient to some of these players. But otherwise, yeah. A disappointing result, but hopefully we can pull it back, because the football that we played against City that night was a lot more encouraging than what we played against Bournemouth and Sporting at points. So hopefully we recognise how urgent we need to be in this run-in.